Okay, the door type product attribute is essential to get it working properly. Let's go ahead and explain this product attribute. If you notice, we've got them grouped into basic groupings here, kind of like kind products. So decorative surfaces, for example, wood panels, wood flat panels. I'll show you why this is so essential here in just a minute. But first, the first column to worry about is the ID. This one really isn't that essential. It can be used later if you'd like to. Just make sure that there's a value there, and you can write validations against those, so on and so forth, in case you want to say use that ID somewhere else in the system. Not totally essential for the formulas per se, but it could be very helpful later. Outsource 0 means you're going to be adding the value of the door in some other way, meaning you've B2B'd in someone else's product, or it's going to be added as a separate line item, so on and so forth. So typically this is going to be a 1, meaning it's going to then look at the pricing ID and determine how to price that door. Material validator. So the material validator also has a material validator over on the front material and finish. So whatever material is being selected, it's going to validate against this door to make sure that they're viable options. For example, you're not going to buy this decorative surface slab in a rustic alder with a certain stain on it. That just wouldn't be an option. And so the validation here is a 1. It would also be a 1 over on the sheet goods that are available, or the possible decorative surface options in the front material and finish. Say, for example, someone tries to order this slab out of that finish that I was talking about that would typically go on your wood raised panel, and it's got an ID of 2. They're going to validate against each other and shut that down. This is on the product level. If you go to, I just navigated to a base 1 drawer to the validations tab. You can see that there are 5 layers of validations for both the door and the drawer front. So you can write up to 5 groupings that will allow those to validate against one another. So very important to get those validations or those kinds of doors similar to each other. And so the door and the front material and finish need to have the same validation number in order for them to be ordered together. Pricing ID functions very much the same way all the pricing IDs do. If you look here to the door and drawer front square foot, this is a 1, a 2, or a 3. This is on the pricing tab of a product. So 1 is a square foot cost. So that would be looking to the square foot price. What are you going to charge per square foot on this kind of a door? Now, it's also going to look at this price, then it's always going to go look at the square foot price also of the front material and finish and add those together. So in the case of like a wood door, you'll have $13 a square foot for the raw lumber, and then another, say, $2 a square foot for the finish, for example. So it's looking at both of those values. Now you're also, say for example, in your cost plus margin, you're going to be looking at your square foot price plus a margin, whatever margin value you've added. Now in your base price plus square foot overage, it's going to look at this base price, and then anything over the square foot of 3.5, then it's going to add this square foot price. So that's the way those are thinking. There's those 3 values. You need to make sure that those are all filled out and understand that how these 3 work together based upon what you've chosen here. Now, one thing to consider is if you are using a cost plus margin, method, a number 2, pricing ID of 2, then you're going to have to change the margin over on the front material and finish, because that is where the material is determining your cost. So it's important that you use those fields there to determine your margin and the cost of your sheet material. Now your catalog is simply the catalog name. Say you're using a different engineering system and you're going to be talking to it. An example would be Cabinet Vision. This is where you would grab your door catalog name. Export is the individual name of this particular door. Stile and rail width is the size of the stile and rail. At what height are you going to add a hinge? So you'll have a third hinge plate. Panel profile, stile and rail profile, and edge profile. And these are all used in the export codes. That is it for the door type product attribute.